Welcome to episode 8 of Paranormal Unwrapped with Krista Raisa and Jack Roth. Krista is a channel for the Orion Council, teacher, and artist. Jack is an investigative journalist, author, and award-winning filmmaker. In this segment, we're investigating Jack himself, talking about his books and what it's like to search for real-life ghosts. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Krista, how are you?
Hey.
I'm very honored that you're like, hey man, I'm just going to ask you questions today about your book. I'm like, all right, cool. That sounds good.
Where do we go with first? Because it's UFOs or ghosts, and I know the topic is all about ghost hunting. So why don't we talk about that? How did you get into that?
Oh gosh, it started in 1995. A long time ago. I had gone up to, I had taken some pictures at a plantation in Louisiana, and it was known as a haunted plantation. And I went there. It was a B&B. I spent the night with some friends, and the photos I took, and this was film. It was film camera. It was before digital. So um, these two photos came out, one black and white, one color photo that were pretty much apparitional forms on the photo. And one in particular was directly tied into the story of the plantation. It was the Myrtles plantation. And that kind of got it all kickstarted. I mean, I just, something like that happens to you, you have to find out more, right? So I was like, I need to know more. And I started doing research, and it changed my life totally. I went down the rabbit hole and haven't come out since. So, yeah, it was an amazing experience. It really was, because when something like that happens to you, right? And you've had the same thing happen, right? All of a sudden something happens to you one day. Yeah, that's the book. And I wrote it with another guy who was also doing the same. What wound up happening over the years is I started taking groups of people to haunted locations, and I started doing like a weekend events where people would go, and I kind of try to teach them how, because I had learned from a couple parapsychologists how to do proper investigations. So we'd bring equipment. We'd always like to have a psychic or two with us. We kind of covered all our bases, went to Gettysburg. We started going to Gettysburg a lot because Gettysburg's amazing, really cool, and very haunted, and a lot of stuff goes on there.
So it's from the Civil War.
Civil War battle took place in 1863. It was a pivotal battle of the Civil War. And it was 51,000 casualties in that battle in 3 days. So you can only imagine, right? You can only imagine the emotional imprint, right? That's, if nothing else, the imprint left behind from that is pretty intense.
Devastating.
So so I started doing this for about 7 years. I would take people up, not every weekend, but just every now and again we get groups, and I documented everything. So over the course of 7 years, I had a ton of research on Gettysburg. I had all this stuff, and so did this other guy. And he was more of a historian. He could tell you what colonel was in what part of the battlefield at what time of day. I'm a Civil War buff, so I know some of it, but like he's like incredible. So we joined forces, and we put together this comprehensive book about the haunting. It's called Ghost Soldiers of Gettysburg, but it's about it's not folklore. It's about all the experiences firsthand experiences we had with the groups of people we took. And then we intersperse interviews with quantum physicists, parapsychologists, other researchers, because we ask questions. Why could this be happening? What kinds of things are happening? What kind of ghosts are there? So we throw in the science, we throw in the experiential.
You have photos too. It says photos from another realm.
There's a chapter on that, but here's the cool thing about it. The photos, unfortunately, a lot of the photos are in their actual Civil War photos, which are really cool. But a lot of the paranormal photos were taken with various kinds of cameras. And if it's taken with like a Polaroid or a cell phone, but it's not on high res. So some of them we couldn't put. Yeah, there's one of the generals, colonel at the time. And it's some really cool Library of Congress photos, high res. But the thing is that the paranormal photos that we captured in Gettysburg were unbelievable. And there not too many are in the book because the Llewellyn, the publisher, didn't want those kinds of things. It was too low res, and they were like, well, we can't, it won't look good there. So, but yeah, we so much happened there. Christy, it's unbelievable.
My
Really?
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen a ghost photo and it's just mind blowing. They pop up in the clothes, right, where they're wearing the Civil War clothes. Or were they soldiers in the
So
photo? Or
yeah, soldiers.
oh my
They
gosh.
had Union. You can see they had the Union uniform on, right? Then they had the
Yeah.
jackets, the light blue pants, and they were gathering around the bottom of this field. And it's like, are you kidding? And like 5 minutes before that, a psychic had said, one of the psychics with us was like, "Hey, take pictures down there. There's activity." So she knew there was activity down there, and people were taking photos, and those came out. And there was no one else on the field. There were no reenactors there. We were always really careful about that. But yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Yeah.
Do the psychics ever do any rituals or cleansings? Because I heard that some people want to have a clearing ceremony so that the earthbound ghosts don't stay there. But how in the heck are you going to clear a whole battlefield of 51,000 souls? Or was it, do you think it was less souls there? How many ghosts do you think there were there?
Well, that's a great question because, like, yeah, some psychics. There was one famous psychic that she said she professed to have cleared the entire Gettysburg battlefield, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, psychics want to go, and they said, well, maybe we can get this young soldier to go towards the light, right? Clear that spirit. But the thing of it is that there's a lot going on there. It's not just, so you have a genuine haunting is considered the spirit of who was once a human being in spirit form. The spirit remains behind, so that's a genuine haunting. But in Gettysburg, there's a lot of residual haunting, which means that the imprints of those traumatic events from 1863 are still imprinted in the environment. And depending on, if you're there at the right time, place, and you have the same vibrational frequency that we talked about last week, you can actually see or hear or what actually happened. So that's like an imprint haunting, a residual haunting. So there's a lot of that going on there. I would say most of it's that, and then but there are spirits there as well. But the problem is it's not that easy to clear. I would argue with psychics that say, oh, I've cleared 1 million souls to heaven or to the next, I say heaven, but they, whatever they think, to beyond, to where they need to be, to the light. Right. So they can be whole again as a spirit. And I think it's hard to do that because people are stuck there for a reason, right? They're stuck there because they think about a soldier who has just killed people, and they were very religious back then. So you just killed people. And now you're all of a sudden you're realizing, well, I might be dead, or who knows what you're thinking when you're a ghost, right? And you're like, I don't want to go towards the light because I'm going to go to hell. I killed people.
Right.
I mean, there's all these things, right? I mean, why would they want it there? I'm staying here, or there's unfinished business. And some people suggest that it's a fragment. What's the question we're asking? Does consciousness survive death? That's what we're really asking, right? Yeah. So with this situation, some people think it's a fragment of consciousness that survives death. And it's only if it's a fragment of consciousness that survives death, you really don't know where a lot of these soldiers might not know that the war's over. They might be just they think the battle's going on, and time means nothing. So it hasn't been 150 how many years. It's been seconds to them. So there's so much theory, right? There's so many things that it could be. So yeah, it's tough to, I love psychics. Don't get me wrong. I use them in any investigation I ever do. I want to have one with me, but the whole clearing and cleansing thing, that's tough. I think it's more complicated than some of them make it out to be.
I agree. There's so much I could comment, but let's see what our viewers are asking. They're saying, doesn't all that residual electromagnetic energy make your hair stand up?
Yeah, there have been instances, and it's funny if you feel things, right, and you feel it physically. And a lot of people, when they go to Gettysburg, sometimes they feel physically ill in front of, because there's so much of that kind of energy around them. And if you're an empath, you're feeling what they felt. So you're feeling the battle, you're feeling the fear and the horror and the pain and the hopelessness and the despair. And there have been people that have gone on that field and had to leave immediately. They'll double over and they can't handle it emotionally. So yeah, there's a lot of and I can't remember what your question was now, but I was getting to that. Oh, so what did they ask? They asked if, oh
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes the hair stands up on your, right, on your arm or legs.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an electromagnetic component to ghosts. We don't know why, but that's why people walk around with tri-field meters and they try to measure electromagnetic energy, because it tends to rise when there's a spirit around. So it has something to do with that. So yeah, there is a change in the atmosphere around you, and you feel it. It's that the hair stands up on the back of your neck. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And that's what people feel. The emotional impact of Gettysburg has on people that go and visit is just it's profound.
And you have this saying in your text that it was important for these people to share their story. And when it comes to clearing, I mean, having someone tell your story or you sharing your story, there's some kind of cathartic effect, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
So in a sense, I could imagine that maybe there's some kind of, they feel at peace knowing that somebody cares to document this is 150 years later. There must be, this must be the work. I think this right here is what people like us, spiritual people, we need to do, to clarify and rewrite history. And this changes things, because in school we just have to look into our history books and we're just told these facts and figures that mean nothing. Oh, there's a war, there's another war. But when you're actually there and you're seeing it and talking to the people involved and these colonels, I mean, I just get goosebumps. And these children now, they talk about these indigo children. I was on the train in Finland going to school, and this little boy with really huge eyes came up to me. He looks like he's 3 years old, and he said, "Grandpa's buried out there." And I looked, and there are all these great. He said, "There's a grave, and there are these war tanks." Right, where he said that Grandpa's buried. So it's like, oh, okay, these little children are already tapping into the ghosts. And someone asked, why is it so much easier to photograph spirits with digital cameras and cell phones? Well, supposedly, what I heard is that in the new energy, the scientists or technology people are creating these phones so that they're compatible with the spiritual component, and they don't know that they're doing it. But I know that orbs have been appearing in my photos. Did you get a lot of orbs, or was it just ghosts popping up in that place? Did you guys have to get those machines that show the thing with the points on the arm when a ghost jumps on somebody? It's
that wasn't around when I did this. Yeah. I mean, that new stuff is like, it's crazy, right? But no, there were orbs, but we had to be careful with the orb photos, because if you take photographs in low light situations at night and there's any moisture or dust in the air, and you take it with a flash, that's going to come up on the camera and they look like orbs. That's why some people take photographs and there's a million, like there's tons of these orbs, and they're like, well, oh my God, it must be in a field of ghosts. And that's not the case. So, but we have some really cool daylight orbs that were taken with cameras with no flash, because it was daytime and there was glowing orbs. So those are the ones that actually we thought were something paranormal.
Isn't it easier for them to come at nighttime? I read that ghosts like to appear, or somehow the veils are more thin, like the witching hour at midnight. Like, did you guys go at midnight? Or
we were there at night a lot, and because there's less people in the park. But part of it is too that people they also say that, yeah, there are times when the veil is thinner, and maybe the gloaming. They always say the time right before sunset is the best time to see or communicate or whatever with the other side, because the veil is at its thinnest. But no one's proven that. And as far as the question about the camera, some of the best ghost photographs I've ever taken personally in my life, and the real deal, like I'm talking about apparitions on the photos, were with my film camera. So it wasn't digital, it was film. But really what we're talking about is the visual spectrum. So that's why when people sometimes, when they still use film cameras and they use infrared film, or they use ultraviolet film, and it's very sensitive, it's hard to load, but what it's doing, our eyes see in a certain area of the visual spectrum. There's spectrum above and below the ultraviolet and the infrared that we don't see with our eyes. So that's why people ask, well, if you don't see the ghost, how can you take it with a picture? Well, it's because the film and the camera has a little more. They can capture things a little more in those other spectrums, whether it be ultraviolet or infrared. So that's what we're really talking about. And digital is that it's just really, it depends on where you are. And, if you're, I think there's a lot of factors. I honestly also believe it's the person taking the picture, because I think it's their energy. I think there's an energy associated with you and I last week. We talked about vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
And I think if you're in tune with that frequency and you're holding a camera, and your intent is, and you're asking the question in your head, you're asking permission, saying, hey, can I photograph? You have to be, I think if you're sincere about the way you approach it, you're going to have better results. So if you're like, can I take your photograph? Will you allow us to see you? And then you take the photo and the timing's right, you're going to get something if you're in the right place at the right time.
Well, thank you for that tip. Anyone else want to take a ghost picture? There you go.
Well, Chris, I have a question for you. I have a question for you because and I really am curious about this. So when you channel, right, you're doing the channeling work, and the Orions are higher vibrational, right? Eighth, what are they dimensionally? Or is it?
The transmissions, my research suggests that Orion is connected to the 8th dimensional layer, which is connected to the soul star chakra, the eighth chakra, which is just simply put is the cosmic layer of our energy field. So when we have 7 chakras, we're still planetary.
Okay. So knowing this, I would ask them, and if you already have, and you may have, if you can communicate back, and I don't know if that's how it works, but I would want to know, what is it about our souls and spirits? Does our consciousness survive death? I mean, they may already have the answers to this.
Right. Someone should just ask that. Oh wait, no, they were talking about the afterlife in 2016, I think March. I was just transcribing that for the upcoming book. And they kind of answered it really nonchalantly, like obviously. That was
I think to them, they think we're like, really? Of course it does.
Yeah.
Right? Where we fight that. Like there's so many people who are skeptical about, when we die, we're dead. That's it. It's like, I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
this is so trippy. We could go in so many directions, but because you brought in my work, okay. So for those of you viewers who have my 9-dimensional symbols book, I've been decoding, reverse engineering the channelings, and on page 62 we have the Benevolent Anunnaki Earth Council grid points, and one of those matched Jack's grid. Well, he didn't call them grid points. These were UFO sightings in 1967. We both have Colorado Springs on our lists. And this is his other book, just so you guys know, if you guys want more of the ET stuff. It's called Unknown Down.
Well, you know what? We're going to have Bill Schroeder on. He's the guy it's his experience. So we'll just have Bill on.
Yes.
We'll do a long interview with Bill. Bill's awesome. We'll talk all about that incident, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh, guys. So you guys, we're about to end the show now, but stay tuned. We're going to be doing some interviews soon, and we have a lot to talk about. But Jack, where can our viewers get these books that you?
Oh, easiest way is Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com, and then you look at books and just type in Ghost Soldiers of Gettysburg or Unknown Down, and it'll come up.
And this was published by Llewellyn, so maybe
that was published by Llewellyn, correct? And it's still in bookstores, Barnes and Noble. You can still find them in some bookstores. And the Unknown Down was self-published, but it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon, so you can get it there.
Okay, guys, thank you so much, Jack, for telling us this amazing story. Incredible stuff. We'll see you guys next time.